Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Mandy's Not So Small Talk, and I'm your host, Mandy. So today we're diving deep into something that lies at the heart of emotional well-being, personal growth, and healthy relationships. How we use our words and silence and how that impacts healing, trauma processing, and authentic living. So this conversation matters because many of us struggle with the same things. Am I talking too much? Am I holding too much back? What's the difference between oversharing and expressing authentically? How do I avoid stonewalling others or being stonewalled? And what happens when trauma stays buried? And how does sharing help us heal? So we'll also be unpacking insights from Gabor Maté, Dr. Gabor Maté, who teaches that it's not trauma itself that causes harm, but actually the isolation from it, the absence of someone there to help us process what we've gone through. So this conversation will give you the tools to navigate the balance between speaking too much and not enough, identifying the difference between vulnerability and victimhood, understand the power of mindful silence, and most importantly, feel empowered to express your truth without fear of judgment. So let's dive in because your words matter and so does your silence. First, let's talk about the sheer power of words. Every time we speak, we send energy out into the world. Words create realities both for ourselves and others. They frame how we understand our experiences, how we process emotions, and how we connect with others. Speaking allows us to acknowledge what's inside thoughts, emotions, memories, and give them shape and meaning. But when we speak without intention, just filling up space with words, we can disconnect from both ourselves and from those around us. This is where the idea of oversharing versus mindful sharing becomes crucial. Speaking truthfully is not about filling the air with noise. It's about expressing what needs to be said to connect, to release, or heal. All right, let's get into oversharing and undersharing. Over, under. So, two common struggles. When it comes to emotional expression, many of us fall into these traps without realizing it. So, oversharing happens when we actually reveal more than is appropriate for the situation or the person that we're speaking to. We might overshare because we're seeking validation or connection, hoping someone will understand us better by knowing everything. But this can backfire. People may feel overwhelmed or withdraw, leaving us feeling exposed and misunderstood. So, on the flip side, undersharing happens when we don't express what's really going on in the inside. So we're holding back out of fear, fear of judgment, rejection, or being seen as weak. So it can feel safer to stay quiet. But undersharing, it isolates us emotionally. So over time, the weight of unspoken thoughts and feelings can end up leading to resentment, loneliness, and disconnection. The key to balancing these two tendencies lies in intention. Are you sharing to connect or to seek approval? Are you holding back out of fear or are you respecting your boundaries? Does the person you're sharing with have the capacity to listen and hold space for you? So navigating these questions helps us to speak in a way that honors both ourselves and the other person. While silence sometimes can be a healthy pause for reflection, it can also be used as a weapon. Stonewalling is one of the most damaging ways silence shows up in relationships. Stonewalling occurs when someone shuts down communication completely, refusing to respond, ignoring questions, or emotionally withdrawing to avoid conflict. So it's not just about needing space, it's a deliberate refusal to engage, often used as a form of control or punishment. So if you've ever been stonewalled, you know how frustrating and confusing it feels. I've been stonewalled, and it's very painful. You're left guessing what went wrong, trapped in emotional limbo, and sometimes blaming yourself for the other person's silence. So why do people stonewall? Some use it as a defense mechanism, avoiding conversations that just feel too vulnerable or triggering. Others use it as a form of emotional manipulation, exerting control by withholding communication. It can also reflect unprocessed trauma, where a person shuts down because they just don't have the emotional tools to engage. Stonewalling is not a solution. It's a barrier to connection and healing. Healthy communication involves taking breaks if needed, but always returning to the conversation when both people are ready. Okay, let's bring Dr. Gabor Maté's perspective into this conversation. Maté teaches that the most damaging part of trauma isn't the traumatic event itself, it's the isolation that follows. So when we experience something painful and have no one to help us process it, the emotion becomes internalized and we carry that burden alone. And this silence can lead to feelings of shame, disconnection, and self-blame. People who've been through trauma often tell themselves, I can't talk about this. It's just too much for others. Or I don't want to seem like I'm complaining. But healing requires speaking our truth. Staying silent about trauma keeps us trapped in the very pain that we're trying to avoid. Truth telling, even when it's uncomfortable, creates space for healing. It allows us to release the emotional weight and invite connection. This brings us to an important distinction between speaking to heal versus playing the victim. So when we share our truth to heal, the intention is to actually release and process the emotions that we've carried. It's about saying, this happened and I need to express it so that I can heal. This kind of sharing is empowering. This kind of sharing acknowledges our pain without clinging to it as a part of our identity, as a part of just staying where we are. So playing the victim, however, involves staying stuck in the story of our pain. It's the difference between saying, this happened, but I'm working through it, and this happened, and now I'm powerless. Healing requires a balance between truth-telling and accountability. We need to honor that we've been through without letting it define us. So how do we find that balance between speaking our truth and not oversharing or undersharing? Here are some tools. Pause before speaking. Ask yourself, am I speaking from truth or fear? This helps you slow down and reflect before sharing. Choose your audience wisely. Not everyone needs to hear your story. Share with people you trust, those who can listen without judgment. Now, I know that I've shared my story publicly, and there are people who are able to share their story publicly. And if you do that, for what reason are you doing it? Are you trying to empower others, or are you trying to get attention? And then stay within that identity, right? But if you're trying to move through it, and also you actually have to, if you're going to, whoever you're going to share it with, you have to be prepared to, if like, depending on how much work you've done or how sensitive you can to what possible uh, feedback you might get from that. So like, if you're truly going to be really sensitive about your story and what comments someone might respond to it, you're definitely not in a place to, be able to just share that with anyone. You have to be you have to think about where you yourself are and how you would feel with what different types of responses. With that being said, you don't want to have that holding yourself back from sharing, but you have to make sure that you're able to feel safe with the person that you are sharing with, especially if you're like in a like if it's the first time, or like you're extremely vulnerable, and feel raw about what it is that you're sharing. Um, I've done enough work where how someone responds, I know that it's not how someone responds is not about me at all, and that it's about whatever. It's a reflection on that person. It gives me a window into where that person is within their own journey with how they respond to anything that I share. So and that's sort of the way that it is, and I've kind of understood that going through being a female bodybuilder. I've like kind of gotten a thick skin already through a lot of that avenue, and worked my way up. Plus, I know that, and this is a big side note, in my personal astrology chart, um, it's all about being public with my wounds and being a wounded healer. So I know that it is actually my soul path that I'm supposed to be sharing and helping, sharing and healing through the sharing, and helping others heal through my sharing. And that's actually within my uh, astrological chart. So, and so this is why I just say publicly sharing, or just sharing with anyone, is not just for anyone. And I wouldn't recommend that to just anyone. Um, However, um, you want to be mindful of like where you are and what feels authentic and true for you and who you should choose to share your story with. And you also part of that journey is being able to receive whatever response that would be back. And if you're truly raw and vulnerable, just making sure that that is truly, someone that you do feel safe with sharing that story with. But it is super important that you do open up and share with someone. All right, 3, journal your thoughts. If you're unsure about what to say, writing it down first can help you clarify your emotions. 4, practice mindful listening. Communication isn't just about speaking, it's also about being fully present for others when they share as well. And 5, set boundaries. You can speak your truth without over-explaining or justifying yourself. Boundaries help you honor both yourself and others. So in closing, I want to remind you that your words have power, and so does your silence. The key is to use both intentionally, to speak with honesty and listen with compassion. Healing happens when we bring our truth into the light, even when it's uncomfortable. So thank you so much for joining me today. And if this conversation resonated with you, thank you. Hit the likes button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you for subscribing, and share your thoughts in the comments and tell me, what is one truth that you've been holding back that you're ready to speak? Let's create a space where we can all share and heal and connect. So until next time, stay mindful, stay connected, and speak with intention.